Hey everybody, I got a new toy this weekend and it turned out that I've spent much of the weekend trying to learn how to use it. So I thought I would just post what I've learned here and maybe it'll help someone else, save someone else some time. The device that I got is a MIDI controller. I've always just used my little keyboard, my piano, to do the MIDI controller stuff, but I decided I wanted a smaller one that I could just put on my desktop. So I have invested in an AKAI MPK Mini Mark III MIDI controller, and it's super cool. I was under the impression that I could just pull it out of the box and plug it in and it would just be great and I'd be like Timberland, but it turned out to be a little more difficult than that. And there are a lot of good videos out there between what they provide and what other people on YouTube have done. And then of course, Kenny's videos about Reaper cover some of this, all of this, but it still took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do. So maybe this will be helpful for you. I guess the first thing to talk about is the device setup over here. So if we look at audio, actually let's look at MIDI devices. Okay, so here it is. It's plugged into the computer just with a regular printer cable. Doesn't have to go through the audio interface, or that's how I did it. It just plugs straight into the USB port. Make sure it's enabled and control. And then down here, apparently you can use Reaper's internal metronome to help with timing for the arpeggiator in it. And I don't know anything about that yet, but if you want to do that, apparently you have to do enabled and clock down here. So got both of those things enabled. Drivers. Under audio device, in order to use this, you have to use either ASIO or this WASAPI. Not the loopback, that's the one that will burst your eardrums, but the exclusive mode, you can use it with that. I decided to do the ASIO. So the ASIO was an option in Reaper, but I didn't have a driver. So I had to go download this ASIO for all. And then this took me a minute to figure out. If you click on configuration, it's got its own little set of audio devices up here. And so I had to figure out the right combination of things to turn on and off. You can just toggle the different devices on and off like this. You can expand them like this for the different inputs. This is what turned out to work for me. The AMD high definition audio device turned on, and then this is my audio interface, the Behringer deal, turned on, and everything else turned off. That allows you to use it without any latency. So when you press a key, you immediately hear the sound and not a little bit of a delay. If you use just the regular Windows drivers, you'll get a little bit of delay there. Okay. All right. So now let's make a track. And I'm going to arm it to record. And here's the device. All channels. Okay. So now we have to pick an instrument for the track. I've been learning a lot about plugins and VSTIs and all this weekend as well. So this is one of the free ones from Spitfire, which is pretty cool. So I'm just going to use this as an example. Okay, so here in the plugin window, there's a bazillion different plugins, but it seems like more or less they all kind of have this general, you have stuff to play with up here, and then there's somewhere on that there's a keyboard. And so in this particular one, the white keys are the ones that are the ones that are lit up and not grayed out are the ones that have instruments on them. And so now I should be able to, okay, so I'm hitting the buttons on my little MIDI controller and seeing the corresponding ones on the keyboard and hearing the sounds. Simple enough. Okay. Probably the biggest thing that I struggled with so bad is trying to figure out how to program the pads on this thing. So it has the keyboard, like the regular piano keyboard, but then it has these touch sensitive pads that you can use to operate the instruments. And it took me so freaking long to figure out how to program the pads for what instrument I wanted. So I'm just going to show you what I came up with. I don't know if it's 100% like the right way, but it's what works. It's what worked for me. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to put it in. So let's say that note, let's say I wanted to put this from a key on the keyboard up to a pad. So this is the one I want. So I'm going to put this in record, and I'm going to play that note. Okay, now if I go to the MIDI controller and click on named notes up here, these are the 3 notes I just played. And so that instrument is on number 48, which is C3. And I don't know what those numbers mean, but that's the magic number that you have to know to program the pad. So 48, C3. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the editor for the device itself, but it turns out if Reaper's still using it, the editor won't be able to see it or use it. So I'm going to totally change the audio input away from that. And you may not even have to do this, but you definitely have to get it to stop using it somehow. So do that, do this. Okay, so now Reaper shouldn't be using the device at all. So now I'm going to click over to the software that comes with this particular MIDI controller and open the editor. Oh, there was a little thing about this where only the MPC beat showed up. You had to change it to you had to tell it that you wanted advanced software in order for the editors to show up. So that was a whole thing. So I'm going to open the editor. Okay. These little squares correspond to the pads on the device. There's 2 different banks. And so let's say that I wanted to make this left lower pad be that instrument that I was looking at. So all I got to do is highlight this and change it to that magic number, 48. So now that pad will activate that particular instrument. And then I just send it to RAM. Okay, so now the pad is programmed. Reaper can't have it back until this thing's not using it anymore. So close this out. Okay. So now we do all those things in reverse. And now that I'm thinking about it, I bet you just have to disarm the track or change the input in order to get it to work. But again, this is just what I came up with. Okay, so I'm changing it back to ASIO. And I'm going to arm this for recording. There's the device, all channels. Okay, so now I should be able to play this note. Okay, so that's the key that I was pressing initially, and here's the pad, same note. Okay, so now instead of using the little white key, I can use the pad, which just seems pretty cool. Just seems cool. Okay, and I made a track with the using the pads for some different instruments, and it actually worked really, really well. It works a lot better than what I was doing with my piano before. So that's what I've learned lately. I hope this is helpful for you, and if there's any questions, just let me know, and I'll be glad to try to answer them.